A CVSS 10.0 remote code execution vulnerability, not a 9.8, not a critical-ish. A perfect 10. That's the score assigned to the bug found in Google's Gemini CLI, and if your team has been using it in any automated pipeline, you need to stop what you're doing and check right now. Let's be precise about what we know and what we don't, because the tech press coverage here has largely just restated Google's advisory without much interrogation. The vulnerability is an RCE in the Gemini CLI tool, the command line interface Google ships for interacting with its Gemini models. A CVSS 10.0 means the scoring system found maximum severity across every dimension it evaluates. No authentication required, network accessible, full impact on confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That's the theoretical ceiling. In practice, exploitability depends on how your environment is configured, but a 10 is a 10 and you do not sit on it. Google has patched it. That's the good news. Here's where it gets operationally complicated. The patch has been deployed automatically in some environments and not others. Specifically, if you're running Gemini CLI interactively and it auto-updates, you may already be on the patched version. But if you're running it headless, meaning in a CI/CD pipeline, a GitHub Actions workflow, a scheduled job, a container that gets built and pinned at a specific version, you may be sitting on the vulnerable release right now and have no idea because nothing told you. This is the core problem, and it's not unique to this vulnerability. It's a structural issue with how teams adopt developer tooling into automation pipelines. When an engineer installs a CLI tool locally and runs it interactively, update prompts are visible. The tool says, "Hey, version X. Y is available," the engineer updates, life goes on. But when that same tool gets baked into a Docker file, pinned in a requirements file, or called directly in a workflow YAML, the update mechanism either doesn't run or runs silently, and the version that was current on the day someone wrote that pipeline is the version that keeps running indefinitely. AI-adjacent CLI tools have accelerated this problem significantly over the last 18 months. Teams that would never have installed a random binary into their CI environment are now routinely dropping in tools like Gemini CLI, Claude's CLI tooling, various LLM wrappers, because they're useful for code review steps, documentation generation, automated triage, and similar tasks. The security review that would have happened for a more traditional dependency often doesn't happen for these tools because they feel more like utilities than software. They're not. They're network software running with whatever permissions your pipeline runner has, which in many cases is quite broad. The headless mode issue Google is specifically flagging is worth unpacking. In headless operation, Gemini CLI is presumably making outbound network calls to Google's API, processing inputs from your pipeline, and potentially writing outputs back into your workflow. An RCE in that context means an attacker who can influence the inputs to that tool through a malicious repository, a crafted prompt injection, a compromised upstream dependency, or direct network interception if you're not enforcing TLS verification correctly, could potentially execute arbitrary code in your pipeline environment. Depending on your setup, that could mean access to secrets, access to your artifact registry, access to whatever cloud credentials your runner is using. The blast radius is not small. Now, what exactly is the vulnerability? Unclear from the reporting. The Register article in Google's advisory described the outcome RCE CVSS 10.0, but the specific technical mechanism isn't detailed in the public-facing material as of the time this was written. Whether it's a deserialization issue, a command injection, a path traversal that leads to execution, or something in how the tool handles API responses, that detail is not in the coverage. Google may be holding back specifics to give the ecosystem time to patch, which is reasonable practice, but it means you can't assess exploitability from first principles right now. You have to treat it as fully exploitable until you know otherwise. The version you need to be on is whatever Google has designated as the patched release. Check the official Gemini CLI repository and the advisory directly. Don't rely on third-party summaries, including this one for the exact version number. Go to the source, confirm the patched version, and then audit everywhere you're running this tool. Here's the audit checklist that actually matters. First, search your repositories for any reference to Gemini CLI. That means grepping for the package name, the binary name, any install commands in Docker files or CI configuration files. Don't just check one repo. Check all of them, including internal tooling repos that don't get the same scrutiny as production code. Second, check your GitHub Actions workflows explicitly. Search for any step that installs or invokes the CLI. Third, look at your container base images. If any of them bake in the CLI at build time, you need to rebuild with the patched version and repush. Fourth, check any scheduled jobs or cron-based automation that might be calling the tool on a recurring basis. One thing worth noting about the auto-update behavior: even in environments where the CLI did auto-update, you should verify. Auto-update mechanisms have their own failure modes. Network timeouts, permission issues, caching layers, package manager locks. Any of these can cause an auto-update to silently fail. Don't assume the update happened. Confirm the version. There's also a broader point here about how teams govern the tools that end up in their pipelines. Most organizations have some process around approving production software dependencies. Fewer have an equivalent process for developer tooling that gets promoted into CI/CD. The mental model is that CI tooling is somehow less critical than production code, but that's wrong. Your CI environment often has more privilege than your production environment because it needs to build, sign, push, and deploy. An RCE in your pipeline runner is frequently worse than an RCE in your application because the pipeline runner touches everything. If you don't have a policy that covers CLI tools in automation, this is a reasonable moment to write one. It doesn't need to be bureaucratic. It needs to answer 3 questions: what tools are running in our pipelines, what versions are they pinned to, and who gets notified when a CVE drops for one of them. That's it. If you can answer those 3 questions quickly for your entire CI estate, you're in better shape than most teams. The actual takeaway here is this: run a grep across your CI configuration files and Docker files for any reference to Gemini CLI right now. Confirm the installed version against Google's patched release. And if you find anything pinned to a pre-patch version, treat it as compromised until you've updated and rotated any secrets that runner had access to.